Today we're working with casting resin. We have this from Hobby Silicon. This is a 1-to-1 by volume or weight mix, so it's very easy to work with, and we're going to use a small amount for this project. So we have 2 cups for us to pour the A and B component into. We have a larger cup to mix the 2 components together. We have mixing sticks, and we have molds for us to work with as well. The very first thing we're going to do is we're going to open the A component. And going to pour it directly into this cup here. And that should do it. And then I'm going to do the same with the B component. And again, bring it up to about the same point, because it is 1-to-1 by volume. I'm going to set these aside. So I'm going to take the two components here. I'm going to put them in my larger cup together. You don't have a lot of work time with this. It is very, very short. So I'm going to scrape out these cups very, very loosely. Do the same here. I'm going to set these aside, and I'm going to mix these together. Now we're going to change the angle for you so you can see what happens when you mix and stir. Alright, so I'm mixing this together, and I can already feel, because we're dealing with a large volume of it, that it is getting warm. That's a chemical reaction, so I'm going to make sure this is stirred really well and quickly. Then I'm going to wipe off my stick, and I'm going to very carefully pour this into this mold. Now I'm not worrying about overfilling this too much, because as I said, it's machinable. So if it doesn't go exactly where I want it, I can take it off. Or if it goes too much over the sides, I can take it off when I'm ready to work with my part. So I actually have quite a bit left over, so it's a good thing that I prepared this mold in advance. And I still have some, so I have yet another mold ready to go. And it's almost as if I planned it that way. Okay, so you may notice the bubbles on here, and that's okay. They'll not make a difference in the final piece. The bubbles are better on top than in the piece itself. So I'm going to just give these molds a gentle tap to raise up any bubbles that may be trapped. And then I'm going to real quick see if I can scrape some additional out of this to just top this off. I cannot. So what we're going to do is we're going to wait for this to react, and then we'll go and add just a little bit more to this. The nice part about this resin is it will bond to itself. So if you keep watching this, you'll notice that particularly in this one, it's changing color already. It'll go from this yellowish color to a white as it begins to gel and finish curing. Okay, so if you look closely around the edges, you can see that the bulk of it has turned white already, and then the outside is still not quite done. The demold time for this is going to be somewhere in the area of about 10-15 minutes, I think, before you can feel comfortable removing it. Now I'm going to mix up just a little bit more and top off this one. Now you'll notice that this little rabbit mold here, which is also an antique mold, and the reason I'm making copies of it is because I'm actually going to make another mold of it so that we don't lose it, because over time silicon breaks down somewhat. So let me just real quick do this, and this will not take much at all. It's pretty close. And I'm going to need another cup. There we go. Actually, I think because I'm doing such a small amount, I'm just going to mix these two directly together. This is not best practice, but it will work for this purpose. So good thing I'm wearing my apron, I just spilled a little bit on me. Okay, and I'm going to top this one off very carefully. And as I said, this will bond to itself very nicely. I don't even believe you'll be able to see the line when it's completed, and I'll show you that. I'm going to overfill that just a little bit, and put a little more in this one as well. And then we'll let that cure up and be done. I do have a little bit extra left, so I'm going to try to find a tiny little mold to cast something else in. The mold I found was this little antique butterfly. I have poured the resin in, and as you can see, it is beginning to bloom. This is somewhat of a time lapse, so you can see how the resin will bloom across from the thickest areas over to the thinnest areas. This is roughly about a minute compressed, so you know it does happen very, very quickly. As you can see, our butterfly has completed curing and is almost ready to be demolded. This will take somewhere in the area of about, like I said, 15 minutes or so before I feel comfortable taking it out of the mold, and also to let it cool down somewhat. The bigger ones, particularly like this rabbit mold, there was a lot of the resin used, so it is going to be very hot, and it's surprisingly hot actually. And here we have a infrared thermometer showing that the temperature of that is somewhere between 100 and, well, it's about 140 degrees. The smaller one is somewhat cooler at about 107 degrees, somewhere in that area. These are fully cured. It's been a little over 15 minutes or so since I poured them, and we're going to do the butterfly first. Now, all these molds are silicon. Some are very, very old silicon, but you know, I'm going to be very careful demolding these. So I loosen the side a little bit. Again, the butterfly was one I made with overflow. I had some extra resin left over and I didn't want to waste it, so I had these small molds standing by. And there we go. And I just clean it up a little bit, and there. Here is the bride and groom, the little very old antique mold. I'm going to loosen that by pulling on it. And you notice that I did not use mold release, and the reason for that is because usually on silicon molds it's not necessary for these small pieces or less intricate pieces. To prolong the life of a silicon mold, you may want to use it, but didn't do it on this one. So there we go. And here's a very cute little bride and groom. And then lastly, this rabbit. And again, this is a very old silicon mold, and we're going to actually preserve the mold because we are going to make a duplicate of it out of this. There we go. And this is the mold that we overfilled or had to touch up and add a little bit of extra to. And as you can see, the add line is pretty much impossible to see, and it is also a permanent bond there, so I'm not worried about that separating ever. And that's it.